Hundreds of years ago, Earth was a thriving planet, full of life and hope. Humans had built great cities that reached for the skies, explored distant planets, and even made friends and enemies with alien races. But then came the Great War, a massive conflict between humans and several powerful alien empires. The war devastated Earth, turning its lush landscapes into barren wastelands and wiping out most of its population. To survive, humanity decided to retreat from the galaxy, hiding on their ruined planet and cutting off all contact with the outside world. Over time, other civilizations forgot about Earth, or dismissed it as nothing more than a myth. Stories of ancient human warriors who once ruled the stars became bedtime tales told to children. No one believed humans still existed, except for those living quietly on Earth. A quiet planet, by the year 2750, Earth had recovered somewhat but remained isolated. Its people lived in small communities scattered across the globe, avoiding technology that might attract attention from space. They farmed the land, fished the oceans, and rebuilt what they could. But beneath this quiet existence lay a secret kept hidden for centuries. Deep underground, in bunkers buried under mountains and beneath oceans, humanity had been preparing for the day when aliens would return. These bunkers housed advanced weapons, experimental technology, and most importantly, a fleet of battleships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Powered by quantum reactors and armed with devastating weapons, these ships were designed to protect Earth at any cost. The fleet's leader was Captain Leora Vance, a fearless and determined woman who had grown up hearing stories of humanity's past glory. She dreamed of the day when Earth would rise again, not to conquer, but to defend itself. "We may have hidden," she often said to her crew, "but we never stopped fighting." Beside her stood Dr. Elias Torin, an elderly historian who spent his life studying old records of humanity's golden age. He knew every battle, every hero, and every lesson learned during the Great War. His knowledge inspired the younger generation, reminding them of who they were and what they could achieve. And then there was Kronos, an artificial intelligence created centuries earlier to safeguard Earth's secrets. Though it lacked emotions, Kronos understood its purpose: to ensure humanity survived long enough to reclaim its place among the stars. The Vryn arrived one day. Everything changed. High above Earth's atmosphere, a fleet of alien ships appeared. Their sleek designs shimmered with metallic blues and purples, and their engines hummed softly as they entered orbit. These were the Vryn, a proud and arrogant species known for conquering weaker civilizations. To them, Earth was just another target, a planet rich in resources and ripe for exploitation. Admiral Kael Arden, the leader of the Vryn expedition, stood confidently on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall and imposing, with glowing green eyes and skin that sparkled like gemstones. Like many of his kind, he believed himself superior to other species. When his scouts reported detecting strange energy signals coming from Earth, he laughed dismissively. "Humans? Don't be ridiculous," he sneered. "They're nothing more than fairy tales. If they ever existed, they're long gone now." His officers nodded in agreement. None of them considered the possibility that humans might still live, or worse, that they might fight back. As the Vryn fleet settled into orbit, Admiral Arden broadcast a message to Earth. His voice boomed across the planet, demanding surrender. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth," he declared. "You are now under the control of the Vryn Empire. Surrender your resources and submit to our rule, or face annihilation." On the surface, people froze in fear. For generations, they had avoided drawing attention to themselves, knowing that exposure meant danger. But this time, there was no running. This time, humanity would have to stand its ground. Awakening the past beneath the ocean, alarms blared inside one of Earth's hidden bunkers. Captain Leora Vance rushed to the command center, where technicians monitored the Vryn fleet's movements. Screens displayed images of the alien ships, their weapons glowing ominously. "They've sent an ultimatum," one technician reported nervously. "They want us to surrender." Leora clenched her fists, anger burning in her chest. "Surrender? After everything we've done to survive, not a chance. She turned to Dr. Torin, who stood nearby, clutching a tablet filled with historical data. Doctor, tell me something useful. What do we know about these Vryn? Torin adjusted his glasses and began speaking quickly. The Vryn are a militaristic species. They view conquest as their right and see other civilizations as inferior. But here's the thing. They're arrogant. They won't expect resistance, especially not from humans. Leora smirked. Good. Let's make sure they regret underestimating us. At her command, the bunkers sprang to life. Massive doors slid open, revealing rows of sleek battleships. Each ship gleamed with polished metal and pulsating energy conduits. Engines roared to life as the fleet prepared to launch. Kronos chimed in with updates. Vryn fleet detected at coordinates Alpha 6, estimated time to engagement 15 minutes. Leora nodded sharply. Then let's give them a welcome they'll never forget. The reveal as the countdown ticked away, tension filled the air. Crew members scrambled to their stations, checking weapon systems and running final diagnostics. On the surface, civilians huddled together, watching the skies anxiously. They didn't know what was coming, but they trusted their leaders. Finally, the moment arrived. One by one, Earth's battleships emerged from their hiding places. From underwater silos, mountain fortresses, and orbital stations, the fleet rose into the sky. The sight was breathtaking. Hundreds of colossal ships ascending in perfect formation, their hulls glinting in the sunlight. Energy shields shimmered around them, ready to deflect enemy fire. High above, the Vryn stared in stunned silence. Their sensors lit up with readings they couldn't comprehend. How could such primitive beings possess technology this advanced? What is this? Admiral Arden demanded, his voice trembling with disbelief. Where did these ships come from? Before anyone could answer, Earth's fleet opened fire. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, slamming into the Vryn ships with devastating force. Explosions erupted across the battlefield, sending shockwaves rippling through the void. Return fire, Arden barked, his arrogance replaced by panic. Destroy them! But it was too late. Humanity had caught the Vryn completely off guard. Within minutes, several alien ships were reduced to flaming debris, drifting helplessly through space. A message to the galaxy back aboard the Eclipse Dawn, Captain Vance watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Her crew cheered as the Vryn fleet faltered, but she remained focused. This victory was only the beginning. Kronos, she said firmly, send a message to the Vryn and to anyone else listening. Tell them this. We are humans, we are survivors, and we will not be forgotten. The message echoed across the galaxy, carried by subspace frequencies that reached even the farthest corners of space. Civilizations that had dismissed humans as myths now sat up and took notice. The Vryn realized their mistake too late. They had awakened a sleeping giant. The battle had begun, and humanity's long-hidden fleet was now fully engaged with the Vryn invaders. The sight of Earth's battleships rising into the sky had stunned both friend and foe alike. For centuries, humans had lived in obscurity, hiding their strength while preparing for the day they would need to defend themselves. That day had finally come, and it was clear that no one, least of all the arrogant Vryn, was ready for what humanity had become. The first strike, as the Eclipse. Dawn led the charge. Captain Leora Vance stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the screens displaying live footage of the battlefield. The Vryn fleet scrambled to respond, their sleek ships firing wildly at the sudden onslaught. Explosions lit up space as plasma torpedoes from Earth's fleet tore through enemy defenses. Target their lead cruiser, Leora ordered sharply. Her voice carried authority, cutting through the chaos like a blade. Yes, ma'am, Lieutenant, Rhea Solis replied, her hands flying across the controls. She locked onto the largest Vryn ship and unleashed a barrage of railgun fire. The rounds struck with pinpoint accuracy, piercing through the alien vessel's shields and tearing it apart. In a fiery explosion, the crew erupted into cheers, but Leora silenced them with a raised hand. Stay focused. This isn't over yet. She was right. Though caught off guard, the Vryn were far from defeated. Admiral Cale Arden barked orders from his flagship, rallying his remaining forces. Regroup, focus fire on their command ship. The Vryn ships began coordinating their attacks, targeting the Eclipse Dawn. Energy beams lashed out, striking its shields and causing the entire ship to shudder violently. Shields holding at 60%, reported one of the technicians, nervously. If they keep hitting us like this, we won't let them, Leora interrupted firmly. Turning to Kronos, she asked, "What's their next move?" Kronos analyzed the data quickly. "Their reinforcements are still en route. They're attempting to buy time by focusing on your position." Leora nodded grimly. "Then we'll give them something else to worry about. Divide and conquer, with the Vryn fleet focused on the Eclipse Dawn." Leora devised a bold strategy. She split the human fleet into smaller groups, ordering each squadron to attack different sections of the enemy formation. This tactic forced the Vryn to divide their attention, weakening their overall defense. "Execute Operation Scatterstorm," Leora commanded. Across the battlefield, Earth's ships broke away from their original positions, darting toward separate targets. Some targeted supply vessels, disabling them before they could retreat. Others attacked communications arrays, cutting off the Vryn's ability to coordinate effectively. Lieutenant Solis guided the Eclipse Dawn into a daring maneuver, weaving between incoming fire as they closed in on another Vryn cruiser. "We're within range," she announced. "Fire everything we've got," Leora ordered. The Eclipse Dawn unleashed a devastating salvo of missiles and energy blasts, obliterating the enemy ship in seconds. Debris floated silently through space, a testament to humanity's growing dominance in the fight. Admiral Arden watched in mounting frustration as his fleet crumbled under the relentless assault. "How is this possible?" he growled. "They're supposed to be primitive." His officers exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. None of them had an answer. Discovering the truth amidst the chaos, Dr. Elias Torin worked tirelessly in the intelligence room, analyzing data intercepted from the Vryn fleet. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through files filled with alien symbols and encrypted messages. "Doctor, any luck?" Leora asked over the comms, her tone urgent. "I think so," Torin replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "These records, they mention humanity repeatedly, but not as allies or enemies, as myths, legends. What do you mean?" Leora pressed. "It seems the Vryn have been deliberately erasing our existence from history," Torin explained. "For generations, they've told other civilizations that humans are nothing more than fairy tales. They wanted to make sure no one would believe we still existed or seek us out as potential allies." Leora clenched her fists, anger boiling inside her. "So they didn't just invade, they tried to erase us completely." Torin nodded solemnly. "Yes, but now we have proof. If we survive this, we can use this information to expose them, to remind the galaxy who we really are." Leora took a deep breath, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Understood. Keep digging. We'll make sure they regret ever crossing us." A costly victory, despite their success. The battle came at a heavy price. Several of Earth's ships were lost, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect others. One such ship, the Aurora Blade, stayed behind to hold off a wave of Vryn fighters, allowing the rest of the fleet to regroup. "Captain Vance, the Aurora Blade is requesting permission to stay and cover our retreat," Kronos reported. Leora hesitated, her heart aching at the thought of losing more lives. But she knew there was no other choice. "Grant their request, and tell them, thank you." Moments later, the Aurora Blade detonated its reactor, creating a massive explosion that wiped out dozens of Vryn ships. The sacrifice allowed the remaining human fleet to regroup and prepare for the next phase of the battle. On the bridge of the Eclipse Dawn, silence fell as the crew processed the loss. Leora gripped the railing tightly, her knuckles white. "We honor their bravery," she said softly, "and we finish what they started." Preparing for the next wave. As the initial skirmish subsided, the human fleet regrouped in orbit around Earth. Crews worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships, while engineers scrambled to replenish ammunition and reinforce shields. Despite the exhaustion etched on every face, morale remained high. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with one of the galaxy's most feared species, but Leora knew better than to celebrate prematurely. "Kronos," she asked, "how much time do we have before their reinforcements arrive?" "Approximately 6 hours," Kronos replied. "Based on their current trajectory, they will outnumber us 3-1. Leora exhaled sharply. "Then we'd better make those 6 hours count." She called a meeting with her senior officers, including Lieutenant Solis and Dr. Torin. Together, they reviewed strategies for dealing with the incoming threat. Every idea was considered, no matter how risky. "We can't win a direct confrontation," Solis pointed out. "Not with those numbers." "Agreed," Leora said. "Which means we need to hit them where it hurts, their leadership. Take out their command ship and the rest will fall into disarray." Torin chimed in, holding up his tablet. "I've found something else in their records. Their flagship has a vulnerability, an unshielded access port near the engine core. If we can disable it, we might cripple their entire fleet." Leora smiled faintly. "That's exactly the kind of opening we need. Prepare a strike team. We're going after them ourselves." The plan was simple but dangerous. A small group of ships led by the Eclipse Dawn would infiltrate the Vryn formation and target their flagship. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet would create diversions, drawing enemy fire and keeping them occupied. Before launching the mission, Leora addressed her crew. "This isn't just about winning a battle," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "It's about proving to the galaxy and to ourselves that we are still here, that we are strong, that we will not be forgotten." Her words resonated deeply with everyone present. Soldiers exchanged determined nods, their fear replaced by resolve. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. As the countdown to the next wave began, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. The Vryn reinforcements loomed closer, their ships filling the void like a swarm of predators. But aboard the Eclipse Dawn, there was no trace of fear, only determination. "For Earth," Leora whispered to herself, staring at the stars. "For tomorrow." The battle raged on and humanity's fleet fought with everything they had. The Vryn reinforcements had arrived, bringing with them a fresh wave of ships and soldiers eager to crush the resistance. But Captain Leora Vance and her crew were ready. They knew this was their moment, not just to defend Earth, but to reclaim their place among the stars. Infiltrating the flagship as planned, the Eclipse Dawn led a small strike team deep into the heart of the Vryn fleet. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the enemy flagship, disable its engines, and cripple the Vryn command structure. It was a risky plan, but one that could turn the tide of the war. "Stay close," Leora instructed over the comms as the ships moved in formation. "We only get one shot at this." Lieutenant Rhea Solis piloted the Eclipse Dawn with precision, weaving between larger Vryn vessels and dodging incoming fire. Behind them, 2 smaller escort ships provided cover, firing bursts of plasma torpedoes to keep enemy fighters at bay. On the bridge, technicians monitored readings from the flagship. "Their shields are weakest near the aft section," one reported. "That's where we'll need to breach." Leora nodded. "Prepare boarding pods. We're going in." Moments later, the Eclipse Dawn latched onto the Vryn flagship using magnetic clamps. Boarding pods launched from its hull, carrying teams of soldiers armed with advanced weaponry. Leora led one of these teams herself, determined to see the mission through. Inside the beast, the interior of the Vryn flagship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Biomechanical walls pulsed faintly, glowing with an eerie green light. Strange tendrils writhed along the corridors as though alive. Alien soldiers patrolled the halls, their gemstone-like eyes scanning for intruders. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Corporal Jace Miller, gripping his rifle tightly. "Focus," Leora snapped. "Stick to the plan." Using data provided by Dr. Torin, the team navigated toward the ship's engine core. Along the way, they encountered fierce resistance. Vryn warriors emerged from every corner, their weapons firing bolts of searing energy. The humans fought back with equal ferocity, relying on teamwork and superior tactics to overcome the odds. At one point, the team found themselves trapped in a narrow corridor, surrounded by enemies on both sides. Leora quickly assessed the situation. "Solus, set charges on the ceiling. We'll blast our way out." "Yes, ma'am," Solus replied, planting explosives with practiced efficiency. Seconds later, the charges detonated, creating a path upward, into a ventilation shaft. "We don't have time to waste," Leora reminded them as they climbed through the debris. "Keep moving." Facing Admiral Arden, finally the team reached the flagship's command center. Inside, Admiral Cale Arden stood confidently, his glowing green eyes filled with arrogance. Surrounding him were rows of holographic displays showing real-time updates from the battlefield. "Well, well," he sneered as the humans entered. "So the fairy tales walk among us after all." Leora stepped forward, her weapon trained on him. "Your invasion ends here, Arden." Arden laughed coldly. "You think you can stop us? You're nothing but relics of a forgotten age." "Maybe," Leora admitted, her voice steady. "But even relics can burn." With that, she gave the signal to attack. Her team unleashed a barrage of fire, forcing Arden's guards to retreat. The room erupted into chaos as humans and Vryn clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Despite being outnumbered, the humans held their ground. Lieutenant Solus used her agility to outmaneuver the aliens, taking down several with precise shots. Corporal Miller wielded a heavy plasma cannon, blasting through groups of enemies with ease, and Leora herself faced off against Admiral Arden in a personal duel. "You should have stayed hidden," Arden snarled, swinging a shimmering blade made of pure energy. "And let you destroy my home?" Leora countered, parrying his attacks with her own weapon. "Never." The fight was intense, each blow reverberating through the chamber, but Leora's determination outweighed Arden's arrogance. With a final powerful strike, she disarmed him and pinned him to the ground. "It's over," she said firmly. "Surrender, or die." Defeated, Arden raised his hands in surrender. His expression was a mix of anger and disbelief. "You may win today, human, but this war is far from finished." Destroying the core. With Arden captured, the team moved to complete their mission. Dr. Torrin had provided detailed schematics of the flagship's engine core, and now it was up to them to plant explosives that would disable it. "Set the charges here and here," Leora instructed, pointing to key locations. "Make sure the timer is set for 10 minutes. We'll need enough time to escape." As the team worked, alarms blared throughout the ship. Reinforcements were closing in, alerted by Arden's capture. "Hurry," Leora urged. "We're running out of time." Finally, the charges were in place. "Let's move," Leora shouted, leading the way back toward their boarding pods. They retraced their steps, fighting off waves of Vryn soldiers desperate to stop them. Explosions rocked the ship as secondary systems began to fail, making the journey even more perilous. At one point, part of the corridor collapsed behind them, narrowly missing the team. "We're almost there," Solus called out, guiding them toward the exit. Reaching the boarding pods, the team launched back toward the Eclipse Dawn. As they cleared the flagship, the first charge detonated, sending shockwaves rippling through the massive vessel. Moments later, the second explosion tore through the engine core, causing the entire ship to implode in a brilliant flash of light. A turning point back aboard the Eclipse Dawn. The crew watched as the flagship exploded, taking countless Vryn ships with it. The remaining alien fleet faltered, their coordination shattered without central leadership. "We did it," Solus said breathlessly, slumping into her seat. "For now," Leora corrected, her tone serious. "This isn't the end, they'll regroup. But today we showed them and the galaxy that we're still here." Across the battlefield, the human fleet rallied around the Eclipse Dawn. Ships cheered over open channels, celebrating their hard-fought victory. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt truly alive again. Dr. Torrin joined Leora on the bridge, holding up his tablet. "I've decrypted more of their records. Not only did the Vryn erase us from history, they've been doing this to other civilizations too. If we expose them, the galaxy will rise against them. Leora smiled faintly. Then that's what we'll do. But first, we finish this fight. Looking ahead, as the battle subsided, the human fleet regrouped in orbit around Earth. Crews tended to damaged ships while engineers worked tirelessly to prepare for the next engagement. Though battered and bruised, their spirits remained unbroken. On the bridge of the Eclipse Dawn, Leora gazed at the stars. Despite the losses they'd suffered, she felt a renewed sense of hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, and soon the galaxy would know the truth. They thought we were myths, she whispered softly, but we're legends reborn. The battle against the Vryn was far from over, but humanity had proven itself capable of standing up to one of the galaxy's most feared empires. The destruction of the Vryn flagship had dealt a devastating blow to their forces, but Admiral Cale Arden's warning lingered in Captain Leora Vance's mind. This war wasn't just about Earth. It was about reclaiming humanity's place among the stars. And as the human fleet prepared for the final confrontation, they knew sacrifices would have to be made. The enemy strikes back. The Vryn weren't ready to admit defeat. Though their flagship had been destroyed, their reinforcements continued to pour into Earth's orbit. Thousands of ships filled the void, their glowing engines casting an ominous light across the battlefield. For every Vryn vessel humanity destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Admiral Arden, now aboard a secondary command ship, rallied his troops with renewed fury. "They've humiliated us," he snarled over the comms, "but no more. Today we crush them completely." Leora watched the enemy fleet grow larger on the monitors. Her heart sank, but she refused to let fear show. Turning to her crew, she said firmly, "We've come this far. We're not backing down now." Kronos chimed in with an update. "Their numbers exceed ours by nearly 4 to 1. Our chances of survival are minimal." "We don't need chances," Leora replied. "We need determination. Prepare the fleet for one last stand, a desperate plan knowing." They couldn't win through sheer numbers or firepower. Leora devised a desperate plan. She ordered all remaining ships to converge near Earth's moon, using its gravity well to amplify their weapons' power. At the same time, the Eclipse Dawn would make a suicide run toward the Vryn's main weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire planets. "Captain, are you sure?" Lieutenant Solis asked hesitantly. "If we do this, there won't be any way back." "I know," Leora said softly, "but it's the only way to ensure Earth's survival. If we fail, nothing else matters." Her decision sent shockwaves through the crew. Soldiers exchanged uneasy glances knowing what lay ahead, but no one questioned her. They trusted her leadership, and they understood the stakes. Dr. Torin approached her quietly. "Leora, there's something I need to say." "What is it, Doctor?" she asked, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "You've done more than anyone could have hoped," he said, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You've reminded us who we are. No matter what happens next, humanity will rise again because of you." Leora smiled faintly. "Thank you, Elias. That means more than you know." The final charge as the human fleet positioned itself near the moon, the Eclipse Dawn broke away from formation, heading straight for the Vryn's planet-destroying weapon. Its sleek hull gleamed under the sunlight, a lone warrior charging into the heart of the enemy fleet. "Kronos, how long until impact?" Leora asked. "Approximately 10 minutes," Kronos replied. "Once within range, the reactor overload sequence will begin automatically." "And the rest of the fleet?" "They're holding position and providing cover fire. Their orders are to retreat once your mission is complete." Leora nodded grimly. "Good. Let's make this count." The crew worked tirelessly to keep the A ship moving forward despite relentless attacks from Vryn fighters. Explosions rocked the hull, sending shockwaves through the corridors. Yet even as alarms blared and systems failed, the Eclipse Dawn pushed onward. On the bridge, Lieutenant Solis monitored the ship's trajectory. "We're almost there," she said, her voice trembling. 3 minutes to target." Leora turned to her team. This is it. Thank you all for everything. Humanity owes you a debt we can never repay. Her words brought tears to many eyes, but there was no time for goodbyes. The countdown continued, each second feeling like an eternity. Sacrifice and triumph finally, the Eclipse Dawn reached the Vryn weapon. Its massive form loomed ahead, pulsating with deadly energy. As the ship drew closer, Leora activated the reactor overload sequence. This is Captain Leora Vance of the Eclipse Dawn, she broadcast across all frequencies. To the Vryn, to the galaxy, to anyone listening, humanity does not bow, we do not break, and we will never be forgotten. With that, the Eclipse Dawn collided with the weapon's core, triggering a cataclysmic explosion. Light flooded the void, obliterating the Vryn fleet and their planet-destroying cannon in a single brilliant flash. The shockwave rippled outward, scattering debris across space. Back near the moon, the surviving human fleet watched in stunned silence. Tears streamed down faces as the reality of the sacrifice sank in. The Eclipse Dawn was gone, but so were the Vryn. A new beginning in the aftermath of the battle, Earth mourned its losses but celebrated its victory. News of humanity's resurgence spread across the galaxy, forcing civilizations to acknowledge that humans were far from extinct. They were legends reborn. Survivors gathered in cities and settlements, rebuilding what had been lost. Farmers planted, crops in soil reclaimed from ash, while engineers worked to restore power grids and communication networks. Children played among the ruins, their laughter echoing through streets once filled with fear. Dr. Torrin stood atop a hill overlooking the wreckage of an old city, clutching a tablet filled with decrypted records of the Vryn's crimes. This is just the beginning, he whispered to himself. Humanity has a long road ahead, but we'll walk it together. Kronos, though damaged during the battle, remained operational. It delivered a final message to those who had fought. Alongside it, your courage will never be forgotten. Humanity's story continues. A message to the galaxy weeks later, Earth sent out a transmission to the stars, a declaration of peace and unity. The message included evidence of the Vryn's atrocities exposing their lies and manipulations to the galaxy. Civilizations that had once dismissed humans as myths now looked to them with admiration and respect. Captain Leora Vance's final words became a rallying cry for the new era. They thought we were fairy tales until our battleships appeared. Her legacy lived on in the hearts of those who followed. Monuments were erected in honor of the fallen, their names etched into stone as reminders of the price paid for freedom. Among these monuments stood a statue of the Eclipse Dawn, its sleek form immortalized as a symbol of hope and resilience. Looking to the future years passed, and Earth began to heal. Forests regrew, rivers ran clear, and cities rose anew, blending modern innovation with lessons learned from the past. Space exploration resumed, not as a means of conquest, but as a way to seek understanding and connection with the universe. One day, a young girl named Amara stood beside her grandmother, gazing up at the stars. She pointed at a constellation and asked, "Grandma, do you think there are others out there, like the Vryn?" Her grandmother smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "There might be, but if they ever come here, they'll find a world ready to defend itself and a people united in peace." Amara nodded thoughtfully, then looked back at the stars. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the remnants of the Eclipse Dawn drifted silently through space, a monument to courage and sacrifice. Though broken, it served as a reminder that humanity's greatest victories were not won through weapons alone, but through hope, determination, and love.